Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a two-part video. The first part, we are going to teach you how to use our cutter properly. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, you're going to hold it the same exact way. You're going to take your pointer finger and you're going to rest it comfortably on top of the blade. You're going to take your thumb, there's a little indention on both the right and left-hand rotary cutters, and you're going to place your thumb in that indention, and then you're going to line these knuckles up with this handle. So this is how it looks when you cut. Now, it has a blade guard. When that blade guard is down, it cannot cut you. In order to open this blade so you can cut, you have to roll it forward. So I want everybody to listen. You're going to hear a snap. Ready? That snap exposes the blade, and you take your middle finger off and you push it back towards yourself. That covers the blade. So open, close. Now, the most important thing to understand when you use the cutter, right or left-handed, when you push with your palm. It's like pushing a car off the side of the road. It's the same concept when you use the rotary cutter. So I'm pushing. So now, there's another thing that you have to realize when you're using the right or left-handed cutter. If you're right-handed, you want to make sure you're always cutting on the outside of your right hip. If you're left-handed, you want to make sure that you are cutting on the outside of your left hip. And the only other thing that you need to really pay attention to is make sure the blade is straight. So if you can remember these two things, you will be perfect in cutting every single time. Now, the reason why people can't do that oftentimes is because they always bring their rotary cutter to their ruler. When you do that, it changes the blade angle, and then you constantly have to fight. So using the Martelli Rotary Cutter, you never bring the rotary cutter to your ruler. Watch. You always bring your ruler to your rotary cutter. So you're cutting on the outside of your hip. Now, if you're doing that, that enables you to cut a lot more layers. Now, remember, this is strictly a how-to video. So now that we know how to hold this, and now that we know that we're pushing with our palm, we're going to cut through 32 layers of fabric. And then in the next video, I'll explain to you why it works the way that it does. Okay, so out here, outside of my hip, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to push. Watch. There's one layer. Now, when you cut with this, you should not even be able to feel that it's cutting. There's two layers. Ready? Here's 4. Here's 8. Here's 16. Okay, now you ready? Is everybody ready for this? 32 layers of fabric. Look how straight every single layer is from top to bottom. We're the only rotary cutter in the world that can cut multiple layers like that with ease because it's 100% the design of the rotary cutter. So pointer finger on top of the blade, resting comfortably. It's nice and flat. Thumb right there in the groove. You push down on the outside of your hip, push down, roll forward. That exposes the blade. You cut on the outside of your hip with the blade straight. When you're done, you close it. You cut out here. If you start cutting in here, you're not going to like the cutter. This is designed to cut on the outside of your hip, allowing you to cut many more layers and allow you to cut many more layers much more comfortably. So this is how you use the Martelli Rotary Cutter, right hand and left hand. Video number 2, we're going to tell you why it works the way that it does. If you're like me and you want to understand how something works, I'm going to explain it to you in such a way where it makes perfect sense. So a blade comes to a point, just like this. When a blade comes to a point, and that blade is not perfectly straight up and down, and that blade is a little bit sideways, I want to show you what happens. So if you look right here, a blade is perfectly straight. So if I take that blade that is perfectly straight, and I turn that blade just a little bit, I want everybody to watch this fabric right here. So straight, and now turned. So now when I try to cut the fabric, you see how it pushes the fabric and it won't cut it? Now I'm going to do the same exact thing. The only thing I'm going to do differently is I'm going to straighten the blade. So now the blade is straight. See how it cuts the fabric very, very easy? That shows you how microscopic thin that blade is. So when you cut in the middle of your body with the ruler, with the template at all, and you bring your rotary cutter to your ruler, your shoulder's on the outside of your body. So what happens is it changes the blade angle from straight up and down to sideways. So if you get a close-up of this shot right here, you're going to see that my blade, because it's at an angle, is not square to my ruler. So now what happens is I have to straighten the blade, and nobody cuts like this. Nobody will cut like this with their shoulder on the outside of their body and their blade inside the body. So now watch what I do to make this a lot easier, right? So this is a picture in the middle of my body trying to cut square. Now watch. I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to move my ruler out here, and now look how everything is perfectly straight. Can everybody see that? See how everything's in a perfect straight line? So it is very, very important to understand why you want to cut on the outside of your hip. Now, I understand that this is not a pencil, right? But pretend like this is a pencil. If I wanted to break this, I could break it very easily if I went from side to side. But if I took that same pencil and I turned it this way, and I push straight down this way, and I push straight up this way, and I try to break it like this, I could never break that pencil because that pencil has its entire body for support. Now I want everybody to follow me. If you're using a Martelli Ergo rotary cutter, your finger's on top of the blade in the middle, so it doesn't matter how hard I push. It doesn't matter because that blade is using its entire body for support. Now what you're using at home with traditional rotary cutters is you have a pizza cutter. It's a stick, and at the end of the stick there's a blade. So what you do is you pick it up and you turn it. So what you do is it looks like this. The further you are from the blade, the harder you have to push. The harder you have to push, the more it takes that razor edge, and it does this right here. It kind of bends that razor edge, it rolls it over. So what happens is, and everybody will be able to tell when I show you this, so if you cut, a lot of times this is what it will look like. And then you just go, oh, well, my blade is dull. So my question to you is, if your blade is dull, how is it cutting there? How is it cutting there? How is it cutting there? And how is it cutting there? So then what you do is you go back and you go, and you damage the blade more. Blades that skip are not dull, they're damaged. So how you prevent that from happening is and it can only be done because of the design of the cutter, it can only be done with the Martelli Ergo cutter, right? So how you stop that is you cut on the outside of your hip and you keep the blade straight. When you do that, it keeps that razor edge from rolling over, and that's why I can cut through 32 layers with fabric with no problem. So much so, and this kind of caps everything that I tell everybody. If you took your pizza cutter or your rotary cutter at home and you cut cardboard, this is cardboard. If you cut cardboard one time, your blade would never cut again. So I'm going to show everybody something. Watch. I could do this all day, every single day. I could cut cardboard like it's not even there, and then I can come back and take fabric. Watch this now. I can come back and take fabric. I'm going to cut a little piece of fabric like this. I'm going to cut a piece of fabric like that, and I'm going to put this down. I'm not even going to hold this properly. The only thing I'm going to do is make sure that blade is straight up and down and watch my fabric. I'm the only one in the world that can cut any kind of material with my rotary cutter and come back and cut fabric. Now, when I say any type of material, I'm talking about like thin plastic or cardboard or things like that. Because right now it's taught, don't use the same blade for fabric and other stuff. That's not because of the blade. The reason why people tell you that is because the material that you cut, the harder you have to push, and it's how you use the blade inside the cutter. I use direct pressure on top of the blade. You use indirect pressure behind the blade with those straight-handled pizza cutters. So 100%, it's how you're doing it. And the Martelli Ergo rotary cutter is the only rotary cutter in the world that will allow you to use the blade properly at all times. If you use the blade properly at all times, you can cut and cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. Your blade life will be added to tremendously by using the Martelli Ergo rotary cutter because of the design of the cutter. It has nothing to do with the blade. It has everything to do with the design of the cutter, how it's being held, and how it's being used.